No one believed Sarah Mitchell when she first told them about the mysterious movements under her father's grave. "You're seeing things," they said. "Grief can play tricks on the mind," they warned. But 3 months later, when her father's loyal German shepherd led a crowd of cemetery visitors to witness something extraordinary, every single person who doubted her story stood in stunned silence. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. This story begins in the rain-soaked grounds of Pine Grove Cemetery, just outside the quiet town of Millbrook, Connecticut. The late autumn winds whipped through the aging maple trees, their golden leaves scattering across the weathered headstones like nature's own tribute to the departed. Sarah Mitchell stood before her father's fresh grave, her hands trembling not from the cold, but from what she had just witnessed. Beside her, Max, her father's faithful German shepherd, hadn't moved from the grave since the funeral 3 weeks ago. The bond between Max and Sarah's father, James Mitchell, had been legendary in their small town. James, a retired K-9 police officer, had rescued Max as a barely alive puppy from a brutal dogfighting ring 6 years ago. Their connection was immediate and unshakable. Where James went, Max followed, their synchronized movements a testament to years of trust and companionship. Even after James retired, the pair volunteered at local schools, teaching children about animal care and responsibility. The day James suffered his sudden heart attack, Max had been the one to alert the neighbors, barking frantically and leading them to where James had collapsed in his garden. Despite the paramedics' best efforts, James didn't survive. At the funeral, Max's mournful howls echoed through the cemetery, touching even the most hardened hearts. After the last mourners left, the dog simply lay down on the fresh earth and refused to leave. Sarah visited twice daily, bringing food and water, trying to coax Max home. The cemetery caretaker, old Mr. Peterson, made an unprecedented exception to the dawn-to-dusk rules, allowing Max to stay. "In 40 years tending these grounds," he said, wiping his eyes, "I've never seen devotion like this. Some bonds go deeper than death." Local news stations picked up the story. Animal behaviorists came to study Max's unwavering vigil. Social media buzzed with photos and videos of the loyal dog who wouldn't leave his master's grave. But no one knew that something far more extraordinary was about to unfold. It started 3 weeks after the funeral, on a particularly cold night. Sarah had stayed later than usual, worried about Max in the dropping temperature. The cemetery was eerily quiet, save for the whisper of wind through the trees and the occasional hoot of an owl. As she turned to leave, Max suddenly raised his head, ears perked forward, every muscle tense. That's when Sarah first felt it, a subtle vibration beneath her feet. At first, she thought it was her imagination, or perhaps a distant truck on the highway, but Max's behavior told her something else was happening. The dog began pawing at the earth, whining in a way she'd never heard before. Sarah knelt beside the grave, her heart pounding. The vibration grew stronger, and then, impossibly unbelievably, she felt movement under the soil. It wasn't the subtle settling of fresh earth or the natural processes of the ground. This was different, rhythmic, almost like. She ran to Mr. Peterson's cottage at the cemetery entrance, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. The old caretaker listened, his weathered face growing more concerned with each word. "Miss Mitchell," he said gently, I understand your grieving. Sometimes our minds can... But Sarah cut him off. I know what I felt. Max felt it too. You know dogs sense things we can't. Something's happening at my father's grave, and I need to find out what it is. Mr. Peterson suggested she talk to Dr. Eleanor Hayes, a grief counselor who specialized in helping people cope with the loss of loved ones. Sarah agreed, but only to appease him. She knew what she had experienced wasn't a product of grief or an overactive imagination. Over the next few days, Sarah documented everything. She set up a small, weatherproof camera near the grave, took soil temperature readings, and kept detailed notes of Max's behavior. The dog's demeanor had changed. Instead of lying listlessly on the grave, he now sat alert, watching, waiting. His eyes tracked movement that Sarah couldn't see, his ears constantly swiveling toward the earth. More people began noticing Max's changed behavior. Dr. Hayes, who had come to observe Sarah, admitted that the dog's actions were unusual. Animals can process grief differently than humans, she explained, but this is something I've never encountered in my 20 years of practice. Local university professors started taking interest. Dr. Marcus Chen, a geologist, brought sensitive equipment to measure underground activity. There are natural explanations for soil movement, he assured Sarah. Decomposition can create pockets of gas. Groundwater can shift the earth. But when he saw his readings, his scientific certainty wavered. Sarah's sister Rebecca, always, the skeptical one, flew in from Seattle. This has to stop, she insisted. Dad wouldn't want you spending your nights in a cemetery chasing impossible theories. It's time to help Max move on, and yourself too. But that night, Rebecca witnessed something that shattered her doubt. As the sisters argued near the grave, Max suddenly became agitated. The monitoring equipment began registering unprecedented activity. And then, in front of both women, the earth moved, not in the subtle way Sarah had first described, but in a deliberate pattern that defied natural explanation. Rebecca's hands shook as she filmed the event on her phone. This changes everything, she whispered. But neither sister knew just how right she was. The real miracle was still to come, and it would take place in front of dozens of witnesses, leaving experts and skeptics alike searching for explanations. The local press caught wind of the story, but Sarah refused all interviews. She knew that what was happening defied logical explanation, and she needed to understand it before sharing it with the world. She spent hours researching similar phenomena, connecting with experts in various fields, and keeping meticulous records of every occurrence. Max seemed to grow stronger, more purposeful in his vigil. The defeated, grieving dog was gone, replaced by an animal with a mission. He patrolled the grave in precise patterns, stopping at exact points as if marking an invisible boundary. His behavior caught the attention of Dr. Amanda Foster, a renowned animal behaviorist who specialized in canine cognition. Dogs possess sensory abilities far beyond our understanding, Dr. Foster explained as she observed Max. They can detect subtle changes in electromagnetic fields, minute variations in temperature, and even alterations in the chemical composition of their environment. What's fascinating about Max's behavior is its precision and purpose. He's not just responding to stimuli, he appears to be actively participating in something. As October drew to a close, the phenomena intensified. The movements beneath the grave became more frequent, more deliberate. Max's excitement grew with each occurrence, his bark taking on a different tone, not of warning or distress, but almost of celebration. Sarah spent every possible moment at the cemetery, sleeping, in her car when she couldn't bear to leave. She knew something unprecedented was building, something that would challenge everything we think we know about the boundaries between life and death, between the possible and impossible. And she was right. What happened next would not only validate her experiences, but would also spark a worldwide conversation about the depths of animal loyalty and the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding. The truth would emerge in front of countless witnesses, captured on dozens of cameras, leaving no room for doubt or denial. But even as Sarah documented each inexplicable event, she couldn't have predicted the extraordinary chain of events that was about to unfold. Events that would not only change her life, but would challenge our very understanding of the bond between humans and their animal companions. The stage was set for a revelation that would leave even the most hardened skeptics questioning everything they believed, and it all centered on one loyal dog who refused to leave his master's grave and the impossible secret he was helping to protect. The morning dawned crisp and clear in Millbrook, Connecticut, painting the cemetery in shades of amber and gold. Sarah Mitchell pulled her worn leather jacket tighter as she made her way through the iron gates of Pine Grove Cemetery, carrying her usual bag of supplies, water, dog food, and her ever-present journal where she documented every inexplicable event. Living in a small town meant everyone knew your business, and Sarah's daily pilgrimages to her father's grave had become the talk of Millbrook. Some called it dedication, others called it obsession. The waitresses at Joe's Diner whispered about it over coffee refills, and the regulars at McNally's bar had theories ranging from mundane to supernatural. But Sarah didn't care about the gossip. Her mind was focused on the strange sequence of events that had begun to unfold. As she approached her father's grave, she saw Max in his usual spot, but something was different today. The German shepherd's posture was alert, his ears forward, nose twitching as if catching an unfamiliar scent. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Old traditions ran deep in Millbrook, and the town had 3 unspoken rules about Pine Grove Cemetery: never visit after sunset, never disturb the graves, and never question the peace of the dead. Sarah had already broken the first rule countless times. Now she wondered if she was about to break them all. Dr. Marcus Chen's geological equipment, set up in a neat array around the grave, blinked steadily in the morning light. The scientist had been skeptical at first, but his data showed something unprecedented. The soil composition was changing in ways that defied explanation, and the temperature readings fluctuated in patterns that couldn't be attributed to natural causes. Sarah remembered the day they buried her father, how Max had howled in a way that made even the pastor pause in his prayers. The dog had always been intelligent. James had often joked that Max understood more about human nature than most people, but his behavior since the funeral suggested something beyond mere animal instinct. The local veterinarian, Dr. Maria Santos, had been monitoring Max's health during his vigil. "In my 30 years of practice," she told Sarah, "I've never seen anything like this. He's not showing any signs of depression or physical deterioration you'd expect in a grieving dog. If anything, he seems more focused, more energized with each passing day." As Sarah settled into her usual spot beside the grave, she opened her journal and began to write. The morning air was thick with the scent of fallen leaves and damp earth, and somewhere in the distance a church bell tolled 9 times. Max suddenly lifted his head, and Sarah felt that now familiar vibration beneath her feet. The cemetery had its own history of unusual occurrences. Local historian Thomas Bradford had documented strange phenomena dating back to the 1800s. Pine Grove sits at the intersection of 3 underground streams, he'd explained to Sarah. Native American tribes considered this land sacred, a place where the veil between worlds grew thin. Sarah's father had known these stories well. As a police officer, he'd balanced healthy skepticism with an open mind. "There's more mystery in this world than we can explain," he used to say, usually with Max's head resting on his knee. "The trick is knowing which mysteries to pursue." A group of morning joggers paused at the cemetery fence, their curious eyes drawn to the unusual scene. The grieving daughter, the loyal dog, and the scientific equipment surrounding a simple granite headstone. Sarah had grown used to the attention, but today felt different. The air seemed charged with possibility. Dr. Chen's monitors began registering unusual readings. The temperature around the grave dropped suddenly, creating a visible fog that hugged the ground. Max's behavior became more animated. He paced in precise patterns around the headstone, stopping at regular intervals as if marking invisible points. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "The university team wants to bring in ground-penetrating radar. Should I give them permission?" Sarah hesitated. Part of her wanted proof, validation of what she and Max had been experiencing, but another part feared what they might discover. The town council had called an emergency meeting the previous evening to discuss the situation. Some members worried about the cemetery's reputation, others about the increasing number of visitors drawn by the story, but Mayor Helen Graham, who had known James Mitchell for 40 years, sided with Sarah. "If there's even a chance of something extraordinary happening here," she declared, "we owe it to James's memory to find out what it is." Local schools began incorporating the mystery into their curriculum. Science teachers used it to discuss the scientific method and the importance of questioning unexplained phenomena. Literature teachers assigned essays about the bond between humans and animals. Even the skeptics had to admit that something positive was emerging from the situation. Sarah found unexpected support from Father Michael O'Connor, the young priest who had presided over her father's funeral. "Faith isn't just about accepting what we're told," he said during one of his frequent visits to the grave. "Sometimes it's about being open to possibilities that challenge our understanding." As the morning wore on, more people gathered at the cemetery. Dr. Amanda Foster had returned with new equipment to monitor Max's vital signs. The dog's brainwave patterns showed spikes of activity that coincided with the underground movements, suggesting a connection that defied conventional explanation. Sarah's thoughts drifted to her father's last day. James had been unusually contemplative, spending hours in his study with Max at his feet. He'd made cryptic comments about unfinished business and keeping promises. At the time, Sarah had attributed it to normal retirement reflections. Now, she wondered if there had been more to his words. The local paper, the Millbrook Gazette, had been running a series of articles about James Mitchell's career. Stories emerged about lives he'd touched, people he'd helped, and mysteries he'd solved. But it was the cases he couldn't solve that interested Sarah now, the ones that had haunted him, that he'd continued to investigate even after retirement. Max suddenly barked, 3 sharp, deliberate sounds that echoed through the cemetery. The monitoring equipment responded with a chorus of beeps and alarms. Dr. Chen rushed to check the readings, his usual professional composure cracking. "This is impossible," he muttered, adjusting sensors and recalibrating instruments. Sarah felt the vibration intensify beneath her feet. The fog around the grave thickened, taking on shapes that seemed almost deliberate. Max's eyes tracked something, invisible to human perception, his body tense with anticipation. The gathered crowd fell silent, sensing that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Dr. Foster's equipment recorded unprecedented spikes in Max's neural activity. "He's not just responding to stimuli," she explained, her voice tense with excitement. "He's anticipating them. It's as if he knows what's going to happen before it occurs." The morning light seemed to bend around the grave, creating patterns that defied physics. Sarah's journal entries became more urgent, trying to capture every detail of the escalating phenomena. She knew that whatever was building beneath the earth was reaching a crucial point. More experts arrived throughout the morning. Paranormal investigators, quantum physicists, religious scholars. Each brought their own theories and equipment, but none could fully explain what they were witnessing. The boundary between the explicable and the mysterious was beginning to blur. As noon approached, Sarah felt a shift in the atmosphere. The vibrations changed frequency, becoming more rhythmic, more purposeful. Max's behavior became more focused, his movements more precise. Something was building, gathering strength beneath the surface of reality itself. The crowd around the grave had grown, drawn by some inexplicable sense that they were about to witness something unprecedented. Cameras rolled, instruments hummed, and all eyes were fixed on the simple granite headstone that marked James Mitchell's final resting place. But even as the anticipation built, no one could have predicted what would happen next. The truth that was about to emerge would challenge not just their understanding of life and death, but their very conception of what was possible. And at the center of it all stood Max, the loyal German shepherd who had refused to leave his master's grave, guarding a secret that would soon change everything. The stage was set for a revelation that would shake the foundations of science, faith, and human understanding. The mystery that had begun with a grieving dog's vigil was about to unveil something far more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. In Millbrook, 3 sacred rules governed the town's relationship with Pine Grove Cemetery. These rules, passed down through generations, were more than just traditions. They were the foundation of the community's respect for those who rested within its hallowed grounds. The first rule, Sarah knew, was simple. The cemetery gates close at sunset. The second, never disturb the graves or their occupants. And the third, perhaps the most important, accept that death marks a final boundary, one that should never be questioned. But here she was, breaking every single one of these rules, with Max by her side, and a growing crowd of witnesses behind her. The scientific equipment surrounding her father's grave blinked and hummed, recording data that challenged everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between life and death. Dr. Marcus Chen's latest readings had revealed something extraordinary, a pattern of energy emanating from beneath the grave that defied conventional physics. "Look at these wavelengths," he explained to his colleagues, pointing to the oscillating lines on his monitor. "They're not random. There's intelligence behind these patterns." Sarah remembered her father's words about mysteries worth pursuing. James Mitchell hadn't been just any police officer. He'd been known throughout Connecticut for solving cases others had dismissed as impossible. His methods were unconventional, combining hard evidence with an almost intuitive understanding of human nature. And always, without fail, Max had been by his side. The German Shepherd's current behavior was drawing intense interest from animal behaviorists. Dr. Amanda Foster had identified specific patterns in his movements. He would circle the grave exactly 7 times, pause at precise intervals, and react to underground disturbances seconds before they registered on the monitoring equipment. Max isn't just responding to phenomena, Dr. Foster explained to Sarah. He's anticipating them. It's as if he's following a script we can't see, participating in something we can't fully comprehend. The scientist's usual professional detachment had given way to barely contained excitement. Local residents who had initially dismissed Sarah's claims were now bringing their own stories forward. Martha Jennings, who lived across from the cemetery, reported seeing strange lights above James's grave in the early morning hours. Robert Torres, the night security guard at the nearby hospital, described hearing unusual harmonics that made his dog howl in response. The town's skeptics had their own theories. Some suggested underground water movements, others proposed that decomposition gases were creating the unusual phenomena. But none of these explanations could account for the precision of the events, or Max's synchronized responses to them. Sarah established a routine, arriving at dawn each day with fresh supplies for Max and new pages for her ever-growing journal. She documented everything. The timing of the vibrations, changes in temperature, Max's behaviors, and the growing body of scientific data that suggested something unprecedented was occurring. Father O'Connor had begun spending more time at the cemetery, not just as a spiritual advisor, but as a witness to the unfolding mystery. Throughout history, he told Sarah, there have been moments when the veil between worlds grows thin. Perhaps what we're seeing here isn't a violation of natural law, but a glimpse of a deeper order we've yet to understand. The media attention was intensifying. News vans lined the cemetery gates, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like modern totems. Reporters competed for interviews, but Sarah remained selective about who she spoke with, choosing only those who approached the story with respect and genuine curiosity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a quantum physicist from MIT, arrived with specialized equipment designed to measure quantum entanglement. What we're seeing here, she explained, might be evidence of what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Particles remaining connected regardless of physical separation. The town council held another emergency meeting to discuss the growing situation. Tourism was increasing, hotels were filling up, and local businesses were experiencing an unexpected boom. But more than the economic impact, there was a sense that Millbrook was at the center of something profound. Mayor Helen Graham made a decisive announcement. While we welcome visitors who come to witness these events, our primary responsibility is to protect the dignity of our cemetery and support Sarah Mitchell in her quest for understanding. This isn't a circus. It's potentially a moment of profound significance for our understanding of life, death, and the bonds that connect us. Sarah's sister Rebecca, who had initially been skeptical, now spent her days helping to organize the growing research effort. She coordinated between different scientific teams, managed media requests, and most importantly, helped protect Sarah and Max from overwhelming public attention. The underground movements were becoming more frequent and more complex. Dr. Chen's Equipment detected what appeared to be patterns similar to Morse code, but in a sequence that didn't correspond to any known language. Max's reactions to these patterns became more pronounced, his body tensing in anticipation of each new sequence. Local schools began incorporating the events into their curriculum. Science classes discussed the scientific method and the importance of approaching unexplained phenomena with both skepticism and openness. Philosophy classes debated the nature of consciousness and the boundaries between life and death. The story spread beyond Millbrook, attracting attention from religious leaders, scientists and philosophers worldwide. Each brought their own perspective, their own theories about what was happening beneath James Mitchell's grave. But none could fully explain the synchronicity between Max's behavior and the underground phenomena. Sarah found unexpected support from Dr. William Chang, a renowned veterinary neurologist who had studied animal consciousness for decades. "What we're seeing with Max goes beyond known patterns of animal behavior," he explained. "His neural responses suggest he's not just reacting to stimuli, he's actively participating in a complex exchange of information." The phenomena began showing clear patterns, stronger in the early morning and late evening, synchronized with certain phases of the moon, and intensifying during electrical storms. Max's behavior adjusted accordingly, his vigilance increasing during these peak periods. Local artist Marina Santos began creating paintings inspired by the events, capturing the interplay of light and shadow around the grave, the devoted pose of Max at his vigil, and the gathering of seekers drawn to this mysterious convergence of science and spirit. The equipment around the grave grew more sophisticated. Quantum sensors, electromagnetic field detectors, and advanced seismic monitors created a technological perimeter that tracked every fluctuation. Yet for all the scientific observation, the heart of the mystery remained elusive. Sarah spent hours reviewing her father's old case files, looking for connections, patterns, anything that might explain what was happening. James had been working on something in the months before his death, something he'd kept mostly to himself. His notes mentioned boundaries and promises, but revealed little concrete information. As October drew to a close, the phenomena intensified. The vibrations became stronger, more rhythmic, and Max's behavior grew more focused. There was a sense of building momentum, as if all the strange events of the past weeks were leading to something momentous. Dr. Foster's latest analysis of Max's behavior revealed something startling. "The patterns in his movements," she explained, "they're not random. They're forming a kind of language, a communication system we're only beginning to understand." The morning brought new visitors, representatives from major scientific institutions, religious leaders from various faiths, and experts in fields ranging from quantum physics to ancient mysticism. Each brought their own perspective, their own tools for understanding what was happening. Sarah felt the weight of their expectations, their desperate desire for answers, but she remained focused on the simple truth at the heart of it all. Her father's final mystery, Max's unwavering devotion, and the growing certainty that something extraordinary was about to be revealed. The 3 rules of Pine Grove Cemetery had been broken, but perhaps they had been broken for a reason. Perhaps some mysteries demanded to be pursued, some boundaries needed to be questioned, and some truths could only be discovered by those brave enough to challenge the established order. As the day progressed, there was a palpable sense that everything, the scientific measurements, Max's behavior, the gathering of witnesses, was building toward something unprecedented. The truth that would emerge would challenge not just their understanding of death, but their conception of consciousness, connection, and the bonds that transcend physical existence. The critical moment arrived on a Thursday morning, when the first frost of autumn painted the cemetery grass in crystalline white. Sarah stood before her father's grave, her breath visible in the cold air, watching Max's behavior grow increasingly intense. The German shepherd moved with newfound purpose, his powerful body tense with anticipation, as if he alone understood what was about to unfold. Dr. Marcus Chen's instruments had been recording unprecedented readings since dawn. The underground vibrations had evolved into complex patterns that defied scientific explanation. These energy signatures, he explained to his colleagues, they're organizing themselves into sequences that suggest conscious intent. Sarah's mind wandered to her childhood memories of watching her father work. James Mitchell had always approached his most challenging cases with a unique combination of logical analysis and intuitive understanding. The truth, he would say, often hides in plain sight. We just need the courage to see it. The growing crowd of witnesses included an unexpected visitor, Detective Michael Torres, her father's former partner. He had driven through the night from New York after seeing the news reports. James and I worked a case in '98, he told Sarah quietly. Something happened that we never officially reported, something that changed how we both viewed the boundaries between life and death. Dr. Amanda Foster's team had set up new equipment to monitor Max's neurological responses. The readings showed patterns that exceeded anything previously documented in canine behavior studies. His brain activity, she explained, is showing synchronization with the underground phenomena at a quantum level. The morning light took on an unusual quality, creating halos around the scientific equipment and casting shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. The temperature around the grave dropped dramatically, forming a visible bubble of cold air that defied thermal imaging attempts to explain it. Sarah opened her father's old journal, which she had found hidden in his study the night before. The final entries spoke of a discovery he had made, something that connected ancient burial grounds, quantum entanglement, and the unexplained abilities of certain animals to perceive beyond human limitations. Max suddenly froze, his ears forward, every muscle in his powerful body rigid with attention. The monitoring equipment erupted in a symphony of alerts and alarms. Dr. Chen rushed between displays, his usual scientific composure cracking. These readings, they're off the scale. The ground beneath Sarah's feet began to vibrate with a new intensity. The pattern was different now, not the chaotic movement of shifting earth, but a deliberate rhythm that seemed to pulse through the very fabric of reality. Max responded with a series of sharp barks that echoed through the cemetery like commands. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's quantum sensors detected what she called impossible correlations between Max's neural patterns and the underground phenomena. It's as if, she explained, her voice trembling with excitement, the barrier between observer and observed has completely dissolved. Sarah felt a sudden surge of understanding. The pieces of the puzzle, her father's last words, Max's unwavering vigil, the strange patterns of energy, began to align in her mind. She reached for the dog, her hand resting on his thick fur, and, in that moment of connection, something extraordinary happened. The air around the grave began to shimmer with an inner light that defied photography, but was witnessed by dozens of people. The vibrations coalesced into a harmonic frequency that made the scientific equipment resonate in sympathy. Max's barks changed to a low, purposeful growl. Father O'Connor, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "In all my years of ministry," he said, "I've never seen anything like this. It's as if the veil between worlds has become transparent." His words carried the weight of someone witnessing something that challenged their deepest beliefs. The crowd fell silent as Max began to move in a precise pattern around the grave. His paws traced shapes in the frost-covered grass that Dr. Chen's team would later discover matched ancient geometric patterns found in sacred sites around the world. Sarah's father's journal contained a final entry that now seemed prophetic. "Some truths can only be understood when we're ready to see them. The boundary between life and death isn't a wall, it's a door, and sometimes love is the key that opens it." The temperature continued to drop, creating a dome of visible condensation above the grave. Within this ethereal sphere, the laws of physics seemed to operate differently. Light bent in impossible ways, and time itself seemed to flow at a different rate. Dr. Foster's equipment recorded what she called a quantum coherence between Max's brain activity and the energy patterns emanating from the grave. "It's as if," she explained, "he's acting as a bridge between two states of reality we previously thought were permanently separated." The ground's vibration reached a crescendo, and Max let out a howl that seemed to pierce the very fabric of existence. In that moment, witnessed by scientists, skeptics, and believers alike, something impossible happened, something that would challenge our understanding of life, death, and the bonds that connect all living things. The earth beneath James Mitchell's grave began to pulse with a soft, blue-white light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The light formed patterns that Dr. Rodriguez's team would later compare to quantum encryption codes, information encoded at the most fundamental level of reality. Sarah felt a presence, not a ghost or spirit in the traditional sense, but a profound sense of connection that transcended physical reality. Through Max's unwavering vigil, through his deep bond with her father, a channel had been opened between worlds. Detective Torres stepped forward, his face pale with recognition. "James and I once witnessed something similar," he revealed. "A case involving an old cemetery in Maine. He spent years afterward researching ancient burial grounds, quantum physics, and animal consciousness. He believed they were all connected somehow." The scientific equipment surrounding the grave recorded data that would take years to fully analyze. The phenomena defied conventional explanation, suggesting the existence of natural laws beyond current scientific understanding. Max stood at the center of it all, his body illuminated by the strange light, his consciousness somehow bridging the gap between known and unknown. Sarah understood now why her father had chosen this particular plot in Pine Grove Cemetery. The location sat at the intersection of ley lines, ancient energy pathways that crisscross the earth. James had discovered something about these lines, about their potential to connect different levels of existence under certain conditions. The morning air crackled with energy as the light around the grave intensified. Max's behavior became more focused, more deliberate, as if he were performing a ceremony whose significance only he fully understood. The crowd watched in stunned silence as reality itself seemed to bend and flex around them. Dr. Chen's instruments detected what he called quantum tunneling events, Phenomena that suggested matter and energy were moving between different states of existence. What we're witnessing, he said, might be the first documented evidence of consciousness operating beyond physical boundaries. The truth that emerged in those moments would challenge everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the connections that bind all living things. Through Max's devotion, through his unwavering vigil, a door had been opened, not to the afterlife as traditionally imagined, but to a deeper understanding of existence itself. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she realized the full significance of what was unfolding. Her father's final mystery, Max's faithful vigil, the gathering of witnesses, all had been leading to this moment of revelation, this bridge between worlds that would change our understanding forever. The events of that morning would be debated. For years to come, scientists would analyze the data, theologians would interpret the implications, and philosophers would ponder its meaning. But for those who were there, who witnessed firsthand the power of love and devotion to transcend even death itself, no explanation was necessary. They stood on the threshold of a new understanding, watching as a loyal dog's devotion opened doors that science had thought forever closed. And in that moment, as reality itself seemed to shift and change around them, they realized that some bonds truly are stronger than death, and some mysteries are meant to transform our understanding of existence itself. The rescue process began. In a flurry of focused activity, Sarah's hands trembled as she coordinated with the growing team of experts who had gathered around her father's grave. The ethereal blue-white light continued to pulse beneath the earth, creating patterns that Dr. Chen's equipment struggled to document. Max remained steadfast, his powerful body serving as a living compass, directing their attention to specific points around the grave. What happened next would challenge the boundaries of science and faith alike. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum sensors detected what she called localized reality fluctuations, areas where the normal laws of physics seemed to bend and flex. The temperature around these points dropped dramatically, creating visible eddies of condensation in the morning air. Sarah thought back to her father's last case, the one he never solved. It had involved a series of mysterious energy readings at ancient burial sites across New England. James had become obsessed with the connection between these sites and what he called thin places, locations where the boundary between worlds seemed more permeable. The rescue team worked with precision, guided by Max's unwavering instincts and the increasingly sophisticated array of scientific equipment. Dr. Foster monitored the dog's neural patterns, which showed unprecedented levels of coherence with the underground phenomena. "It's as if," she explained, "Max is acting as a conscious bridge between different states of reality." Father O'Connor provided an unexpected breakthrough when he recognized symbols appearing in the frost patterns around the grave. "These markings," he said, pointing to intricate geometric shapes that formed and dissolved in the morning dew. "They appear in medieval texts about dimensional boundaries. The Church kept records of similar phenomena for centuries." The air grew thick with anticipation as the team prepared for what Dr. Chen called the intersection point, a moment when their measurements suggested the boundary between worlds would be at its thinnest. Sarah felt the weight of the moment, understanding that what they were about to attempt had never been documented in scientific history. Detective Torres shared a crucial piece of information from his last case with James. "Your father believed that consciousness wasn't limited to our conventional understanding of space and time. He thought certain animals, especially those with strong emotional bonds to humans, could perceive and interact with these other dimensions. The rescue operation required a delicate balance of scientific precision and intuitive understanding. Sarah found herself drawing on everything she had learned from her father. His attention to detail, his ability to connect seemingly unrelated pieces of information, and most importantly, his unwavering trust in Max's abilities. Dr. Rodriguez's team set up a quantum field generator designed to stabilize the anomalous energy patterns they were detecting. "We're not just observing these phenomena anymore," she explained. "We're actively participating in them. What we're attempting goes beyond any existing scientific framework." Max's behavior became increasingly focused as the morning progressed. His movements traced precise patterns around the grave, each step seemingly coordinated with the pulses of energy beneath the surface. The scientific equipment recorded correlations that defied probability, suggesting a level of conscious interaction that challenged conventional understanding. The breakthrough came when Sarah discovered a pattern in her father's old case notes that matched the energy signatures they were recording. James had documented similar phenomena at other sites, but never with this intensity or coherence. The key, she realized, lay in the unique combination of factors present at Pine Grove Cemetery. The rescue team worked methodically, following Max's lead while monitoring the increasingly complex data from their instruments. Each step had to be precisely timed to coincide with the fluctuations in the quantum field. One wrong move could disrupt the delicate balance they had achieved. Local residents gathered at the cemetery gates, drawn by an inexplicable sense that something momentous was about to occur. The morning light took on an otherworldly quality, creating halos and shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. The air itself seemed charged with potential. Dr. Foster's latest readings showed something remarkable. Max's neural patterns had achieved what she called quantum entanglement, with the energy field emanating from the grave. "He's not just detecting these phenomena," she explained. "He's actively shaping them through his consciousness." Sarah felt a deep connection to her father's work as she coordinated the rescue effort. James had spent years laying the groundwork for this moment, gathering data and making connections that others had dismissed as impossible. Now his research was proving invaluable as they attempted something unprecedented. The team worked with growing confidence as their understanding of the phenomena deepened. Each new measurement, each successful interaction with the energy field brought them closer to their goal. Max's unwavering focus provided a steady anchor in the midst of scientific chaos. Dr. Chen's instruments detected what he called coherent information transfer between different quantum states. The implications were staggering. They were witnessing and actively participating in communication across dimensional boundaries that science had long considered impermeable. The rescue operation entered its most critical phase as the morning sun reached its zenith. The energy patterns beneath the grave intensified, creating visible distortions in the air above the headstone. Max's behavior became more urgent, his movements more precise, as if responding to signals only he could perceive. Sarah found unexpected strength in the memory of her father's teachings. "Truth doesn't always wear a scientific label," he used to say. "Sometimes it speaks in the language of intuition, of connection, of love." These words guided her as she helped coordinate the increasingly complex rescue effort. The team worked seamlessly together, each person contributing their unique expertise to the unprecedented operation. Scientists and spiritualists, skeptics and believers, all united in their determination to understand and interact with the phenomena they were witnessing. Local authorities, initially skeptical, provided crucial support as the operation progressed. They managed the growing crowd of onlookers while ensuring the rescue team had everything they needed. Mayor Helen Graham herself came to offer assistance, recognizing the historical significance of what was unfolding. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field generator began producing results that exceeded their most optimistic projections. The energy patterns stabilized, becoming more coherent and directional. Max's responses to these changes grew more focused, more purposeful, suggesting they were on the right track. The rescue operation reached a crucial moment as multiple readings converged, suggesting an imminent breakthrough. The air around the grave seemed to thicken, becoming almost liquid in its density. Light bent in impossible ways, creating patterns that defied photography but were witnessed by dozens of observers. Sarah felt a profound sense of connection to everything around her. The earth beneath her feet, the charged air, the focused energy of the rescue team, and most importantly, Max's unwavering presence. In that moment, she understood that they were part of something far larger than themselves. The morning reached its climax as all the elements they had been monitoring began to align. Max's behavior, the scientific readings, the ancient patterns and the quantum field manipulations all converged toward a single point in space and time. What happened next would challenge their understanding of reality itself. The rescue effort transcended individual disciplines, becoming a harmony of science and spirit, technology and intuition, human determination and animal devotion. Through their combined efforts, they were about to achieve something that would redefine the boundaries of possible and impossible. Through 5 days of intense monitoring and careful documentation, the team witnessed an evolution in the phenomena that exceeded their wildest expectations. The recovery period became a testament to the power of dedication, as scientists and observers maintained a constant vigil alongside Max, whose behavior grew increasingly purposeful with each passing day. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field measurements revealed patterns that suggested a gradual strengthening of what she termed trans-dimensional coherence. The energy signatures emanating from James Mitchell's grave showed signs of stabilization, forming consistent frequencies that matched ancient harmonic principles found in sacred sites worldwide. Sarah spent these days alternating between managing the growing research team and documenting every detail in her journal. She noticed that Max's eating and sleeping patterns had normalized, but his attention remained fixed on specific points around the grave. The German shepherd would rest briefly, then resume his precise movements, each circuit matching perfectly with the energy fluctuations recorded by Dr. Chen's instruments. Detective Torres brought in his old case files, revealing connections that had previously gone unnoticed. "Your father was tracking similar phenomena across New England," he explained, spreading worn maps across a makeshift table. Each location showed traces of what he called quantum resonance, but nothing approaching the magnitude of what we're seeing here. The local community rallied around the research effort in unexpected ways. Millbrook's residents organized a support system, providing meals for the research team and establishing a volunteer schedule to help manage the growing number of visitors. What had begun as a scientific curiosity had evolved into a communal journey of discovery. Dr. Foster's ongoing analysis of Max's neurological responses revealed something extraordinary. His brain activity isn't just synchronized with the phenomena, she explained, showing Sarah the latest readings. It's anticipating changes before they occur. He's not just responding to these events, he's actively participating in their development. The recovery period brought unexpected insights into James Mitchell's final case. Sarah discovered notebooks hidden in his study that detailed theories about the relationship between quantum physics and animal consciousness. Her father had believed that certain animals, particularly those with strong emotional bonds to humans, could perceive and interact with quantum fields in ways that science was only beginning to understand. Local artist Marina Santos continued her daily visits, creating a series of paintings that captured the subtle changes in the energy field visible around the grave. Her work attracted attention from art critics who noted the unusual quality of light in her paintings, a luminescence that seemed to emerge from the canvas itself. By the third day, Dr. Chen's team had established what they called baseline anomalies, consistent deviations from normal physical laws that appeared to center around Max's movements. The air around the grave developed stable temperature inversions, creating visible layers that defied conventional meteorological explanation. Father O'Connor contributed valuable historical context, bringing ancient texts that described similar phenomena at sacred sites throughout history. What we're witnessing, he suggested, might be what ancient mystics called the thinning of the veil, a state where the boundaries between different levels of reality become more permeable. The fourth day brought a significant breakthrough when Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field generator detected what she called coherent information transfer between different quantum states. The data suggested that information was moving across dimensional boundaries in ways that challenged existing physics models. Sarah found herself drawing increasingly on her father's investigative methods, combining scientific observation with intuitive understanding. She noticed patterns in Max's behavior that corresponded with entries in James's old case files, suggesting her father had been closer to understanding these phenomena than anyone had realized. The research team expanded to include experts in fields ranging from archaeology to theoretical physics. Each brought new perspectives and methodologies, contributing to a growing body of evidence that suggested they were witnessing something unprecedented in scientific history. Local schools organized field trips to the cemetery, where students could observe the scientific process in action. Teachers used the ongoing research as a practical demonstration of how different disciplines could work together to understand complex phenomena. By the fifth day, the energy patterns had stabilized enough for Dr. Chen's team to begin mapping what he called quantum topology, three-dimensional representations of the energy fields that surrounded the grave. These maps revealed geometric patterns that matched ancient sacred symbols found in cultures worldwide. Max's behavior during this period became increasingly sophisticated. He would lead researchers to specific points around the grave just as their instruments detected anomalies, demonstrating an understanding of the phenomena that transcended conventional animal behavior. The recovery period also brought personal healing for Sarah. Working alongside the research team, she began to understand her father's final years in a new light. His seemingly obsessive research into quantum physics and animal consciousness now revealed itself as groundwork for what they were experiencing. Dr. Foster's latest analysis suggested that Max had developed what she termed quantum coherence, a state where his consciousness appeared to operate in harmony with the unusual energy fields. This discovery led to new theories about animal consciousness and its potential to interact with quantum phenomena. The local media maintained a respectful distance, allowing the research team to work without interference while documenting the growing body of evidence. Their coverage attracted attention from major scientific institutions, leading to offers of additional resources and expertise. As the fifth day drew to a close, the team observed what Dr. Rodriguez called harmonic convergence, a state where all their measurements showed synchronized patterns that suggested a deepening stability in the phenomena. Max's behavior reflected this convergence, his movements becoming more fluid and purposeful. The recovery period had transformed Pine Grove Cemetery into a living laboratory where science and mystery intertwined. Researchers worked alongside spiritual leaders, local residents alongside international experts, all united in their quest to understand what they were witnessing. Sarah's documentation of this period would later become the foundation for numerous scientific papers and theoretical frameworks. Her ability to bridge the gap between objective observation and intuitive understanding proved crucial in helping others comprehend the significance of what they were witnessing. The community's support during this time demonstrated the power of collective purpose. People who had never shown interest in science found themselves drawn into discussions about quantum physics and consciousness, while skeptics found their doubts challenged by the growing body of evidence. As the fifth day ended, the research team prepared for what they sensed would be a new phase in their understanding. The recovery period had shown them that the boundaries between science and mystery, between the known and unknown, were more permeable than they had imagined. Max's unwavering dedication during this time inspired a deeper appreciation for the complexity of animal consciousness. His ability to interact with quantum phenomena challenged existing paradigms and suggested new directions for research into animal-human bonds. The recovery period concluded with a sense of growing anticipation. The stabilized energy patterns, Max's evolved behavior, and the accumulated scientific data all suggested they were approaching a new threshold of understanding, one that would challenge their perceptions of reality itself. Through these 5 days, Pine Grove Cemetery had become more than a place of rest. It had transformed into a nexus of discovery where science and mystery converged, where the boundaries between different levels of reality grew thin, and where a loyal dog's devotion continued to guide them toward deeper understanding. The separation marked a profound turning point in the ongoing phenomena at Pine Grove Cemetery. As the morning sun cast long shadows across the frost-covered ground, Sarah Mitchell stood beside her father's grave, watching Max's behavior shift into something entirely new. The German Shepherd's movements had evolved from his initial protective vigil into what Dr. Foster described as purposeful disengagement. Dr. Chen's instruments recorded unprecedented changes in the quantum field surrounding the grave. The energy patterns that had been building for weeks began to show signs of natural resolution, like waves gradually returning to calm after a storm. The scientific team worked tirelessly to document every aspect of this transition, understanding they were witnessing something that might never occur again. Sarah found herself reflecting on her father's last case notes, which spoke of necessary separations and the importance of letting go. James Mitchell had understood something fundamental about the nature of bonds that transcend physical reality, that sometimes the strongest connections require the courage to step back. Detective Torres brought forward a crucial piece of information from his years working with James. "Your father had a theory," he explained, showing Sarah a worn leather notebook. He believed that certain connections, especially those between humans and animals, could evolve beyond physical presence. The separation wasn't an ending, but a transformation. Max's behavior during this phase fascinated Dr. Foster's team. The dog began creating what she called intentional distance, moving in expanding spirals away from the grave while maintaining precise geometric patterns that corresponded with the quantum field measurements. Each movement seemed choreographed, with purpose, as if following an invisible script. The local community witnessed this transition with a mixture of awe and understanding. Mayor Helen Graham organized a town hall meeting where residents could share their observations and experiences. The stories that emerged painted a picture of collective transformation, how one dog's devotion had changed their understanding of loyalty, love, and the nature of consciousness itself. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field generator detected what she termed harmonic resolution, a gradual shift in the energy patterns that suggested a natural evolution rather than an abrupt ending. "What we're seeing," she explained, "isn't a severing of connection, but its evolution into something more subtle and perhaps more profound." Sarah discovered hidden meaning in her father's final entries about his theoretical work. James had written about quantum entanglement of consciousness, the idea that certain bonds could exist independent of physical proximity. His research suggested that separation in space didn't necessarily mean separation in deeper reality. The scientific team documented fascinating correlations between Max's new behavior patterns and changes in the local quantum field. Dr. Chen's instruments showed what he called resonant frequencies that matched ancient harmonic principles found in sacred texts worldwide. The separation was revealing itself as part of a larger pattern of cosmic harmony. Father O'Connor contributed valuable insights from religious traditions that spoke of sacred detachment, the understanding that certain bonds grow stronger through physical separation. He worked with the research team to correlate these spiritual concepts with the scientific data they were gathering. Local artist Marina Santos captured this phase in a series of paintings that showed Max's expanding spiral movements as trails of light against the cemetery's landscape. Art critics noted how her work seemed to capture something beyond the visible, a sense of purpose and evolution in the act of separation. The separation process brought unexpected healing to the community. People began sharing stories of their own experiences with loss and transformation. The cemetery became a place where grief could be explored and understood in a new light, guided by the example of Max's evolving relationship with the grave. Dr. Foster's latest neurological readings showed remarkable patterns in Max's brain activity. "He's not experiencing distress," she explained, showing Sarah the data. "His neural patterns suggest a state of profound coherence, as if he's achieving a deeper understanding of his connection to your father." The research team expanded their focus to include studies of similar phenomena worldwide. They discovered patterns in ancient burial grounds, sacred sites, and locations where strong emotional bonds had left measurable changes in the local quantum field. The separation at Pine Grove was revealing itself as part of a larger, universal pattern. Sarah found herself drawing strength from her father's philosophical writings. James had believed that consciousness existed on multiple levels, and that physical separation was sometimes necessary for deeper connection to emerge. His words helped her understand that what they were witnessing wasn't an ending, but a transformation. The local schools incorporated the ongoing events into their curriculum, using the separation phase as a teaching tool for understanding both scientific principles and emotional intelligence. Students learned about quantum physics alongside lessons about love, loyalty, and the courage to let go. As Max's movements took him further from the grave, Dr. Rodriguez's team detected what she called quantum coherence, a state where separated particles maintain connection regardless of distance. The data suggested that physical separation wasn't diminishing the bond, but allowing it to evolve into something more fundamental. The separation phase attracted attention from researchers studying consciousness and quantum mechanics. They were particularly interested in how Max's conscious choices seemed to interact with and influence quantum field measurements, suggesting a deeper connection between mind and matter. Sarah's documentation of this period became increasingly important as she noticed subtle patterns that the scientific instruments couldn't detect. Her intuitive understanding, combined with her father's theoretical framework, helped bridge the gap between objective measurement and subjective experience. The community continued to support the research effort, but their focus shifted from anticipation of dramatic events to appreciation of subtle transformations. They began to understand that the most profound changes often happen quietly, in the space between physical presence and spiritual connection. Dr. Chen's final analysis of this phase revealed something remarkable. The quantum field patterns around the grave had stabilized into what he called a standing wave of consciousness. This suggested that the connection between Max and James had evolved beyond physical necessity into something more fundamental and lasting. The separation process concluded not with dramatic fanfare, but with quiet understanding. Max's movements had traced a perfect geometric pattern that, when mapped, corresponded to ancient symbols representing transformation and spiritual evolution. The dog had demonstrated that sometimes the deepest loyalty is shown in knowing when to step back. Sarah's journal entries from this period reflected a profound shift in understanding. She wrote about how separation had revealed itself not as an ending, but as a doorway to deeper connection. Through Max's example, they had witnessed how love could evolve beyond physical presence into something more eternal and unchanging. The research team prepared their final reports on the separation phase, knowing they had witnessed something that challenged conventional understanding of consciousness, quantum mechanics, and the bonds between living beings. Their work would open new avenues of research into how consciousness interacts with the physical world. As this phase drew to a close, the Pine Grove Cemetery had been transformed from a place of endings into a site of profound beginning, where separation had revealed itself as a gateway to deeper understanding, and where a dog's devotion had shown that some bonds transcend the physical world entirely. During the bridge period between Max's initial separation and his ultimate return, Pine Grove Cemetery became a nexus of extraordinary events that defied conventional explanation. The 3 months that followed brought a series of increasingly remarkable phenomena that kept the scientific team in a state of constant amazement. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field sensors detected what she called temporal anomalies, moments when time itself seemed to flow differently around James Mitchell's grave. Local residents reported experiencing strange distortions in their perception of time while visiting the cemetery, with minutes stretching into hours or hours passing like moments. Sarah discovered a pattern in her father's old case files that suggested he had anticipated these events. Hidden among his notes were detailed predictions about quantum field fluctuations and their potential effects on consciousness. James had theorized that certain locations could become temporal bridges, where past, present, and future intersected in unusual ways. The research team documented a series of inexplicable occurrences that seemed to center around Max's former patrol routes. Dr. Chen's instruments recorded what he termed ghost readings, energy patterns that matched the dog's previous movements, as if his consciousness had left an indelible mark on the quantum fabric of space itself. Local wildlife began exhibiting unusual behavior patterns that caught Dr. Foster's attention. Birds would form perfect geometric formations above the grave, mirroring the patterns Max had traced during his vigil. Deer would stand motionless for hours, their attention fixed on specific points where the quantum field readings were strongest. Father O'Connor contributed valuable insights from ancient religious texts that described similar phenomena. Throughout history, he explained, there have been accounts of places where the veil between different levels of reality grows thin. These locations often exhibit patterns that match what we're observing here. Detective Torres brought forward cold cases from James Mitchell's career that suddenly began making new sense. Your father investigated several incidents involving unexplained animal behavior and quantum anomalies, he told Sarah. He believed they were all connected to what he called consciousness bridges, points where different levels of awareness could intersect. The scientific team expanded their research to include historical data from the cemetery's founding in the 1800s. They discovered that the location had always been associated with unusual events, particularly involving animals showing seemingly impossible awareness of future events. Dr. Rodriguez's latest experiments revealed something extraordinary. The quantum field around the grave appeared to be storing and processing information in ways that resembled neural networks. It's as if, she explained, the space itself has developed a form of memory, preserving patterns of consciousness and interaction. Sarah spent countless hours correlating her father's theoretical work with the ongoing phenomena. James had developed complex mathematical models predicting how consciousness could create lasting impressions in the quantum field. The current readings matched his calculations with uncanny precision. The local community began reporting dreams that shared common elements, visions of Max leading them through impossible geometries, showing them truths that lay just beyond normal perception. Dr. Foster's team documented hundreds of these accounts, noting striking similarities in the reported imagery and emotions. Marina Santos's artwork from this period captured something that the scientific instruments couldn't measure, a sense of anticipation and purpose in the unfolding events. Her paintings seemed to predict patterns that would later appear in Dr. Chen's quantum field measurements. The research team discovered that the phenomena followed lunar cycles, intensifying during full moons and showing subtle variations that corresponded with celestial alignments. This cosmic connection added another layer to their understanding of the Bridge Period's significance. Local schools developed special programs studying the intersection of quantum physics, consciousness, and animal behavior. Students conducted their own experiments and observations, contributing valuable data to the growing body of research centered around Pine Grove Cemetery. Dr. Foster's analysis of animal behavior in the area revealed a broader pattern of awareness. Various species seemed to be responding to signals or information that existed outside normal sensory channels. Their movements often anticipated changes in the quantum field before they occurred. The Bridge Period brought forth new theoretical frameworks for understanding consciousness and reality. Scientists from around the world contributed perspectives that helped piece together the puzzle of what was unfolding in this quiet corner of Connecticut. Sarah's documentation of this phase became increasingly important as patterns emerged that connected seemingly unrelated events. Her father's theoretical work provided crucial context for understanding how consciousness could create lasting impressions in the fabric of reality itself. The local media maintained respectful coverage, recognizing that they were witnessing something that transcended ordinary news cycles. Their reports focused on the human elements of the story, how the ongoing phenomena were transforming people's understanding of life, death, and consciousness. Dr. Chen's team developed new instruments specifically designed to measure the unique quantum signatures they were encountering. These devices revealed layers of information exchange happening at levels too subtle for conventional equipment to detect. The Bridge Period brought unexpected healing to many who visited the cemetery. People reported experiencing profound insights and emotional resolutions while walking the paths that Max had once patrolled. The space seemed to facilitate a deeper understanding of loss, love, and transformation. As the third month approached its end, the research team began detecting new patterns in the quantum field readings. The data suggested they were approaching another threshold of understanding, one that would challenge their comprehension of reality itself. Sarah found herself drawing on everything she had learned from her father's work and her own experiences during this extraordinary time. She sensed that all the separate threads of research and observation were beginning to weave themselves into a larger pattern of meaning. The Bridge Period concluded with a growing sense of anticipation throughout the community. Something was building, not an ending, but a transformation that would reveal new dimensions of understanding about consciousness, connection, and the lasting impact of love. Through these months of observation and discovery, Pine Grove Cemetery had become more than a research site. It had transformed into a living laboratory where science and mystery converged, where the boundaries between different levels of reality grew thin, and where the power of devotion continued to reveal new truths about the nature of existence itself. As the Bridge Period drew to a close, the team prepared for what they sensed would be an unprecedented revelation. The patterns they had documented, the theories they had developed, and the transformations they had witnessed were all leading toward something extraordinary, a moment of understanding that would change their perception of reality forever. The return setup unfolded on a pristine autumn morning, when Pine Grove Cemetery was bathed in golden light that seemed to dance between the weathered headstones. A light mist hugged the ground, creating an ethereal atmosphere that matched the extraordinary events about to unfold. Sarah Mitchell arrived early, drawn by an inexplicable sense that today would be different from all the others. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field sensors had been recording unprecedented readings since dawn. The energy patterns around James Mitchell's grave showed what she called coherent organization, as if the quantum field itself was preparing for something momentous. The scientific team worked with focused intensity, checking and rechecking their equipment. Local residents began gathering at the cemetery gates, drawn by the same intuitive understanding that had brought Sarah there early. Among them was Emily Chen, an elderly woman who had lived across from Pine Grove for 60 years. "The air feels different today," she said softly, "like the morning before my son returned from war." Detective Torres arrived with a stack of old case files, his face showing barely contained excitement. "These patterns," he explained, spreading weather-worn papers across a makeshift table, "they match exactly what your father documented at other sites where similar phenomena occurred. He called them preparation signatures, quantum field alignments that preceded extraordinary events." The morning light took on an unusual quality, creating halos around objects that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Dr. Chen's instrument readings. The scientific team observed what they termed localized temporal distortions, areas where time itself appeared to flow at slightly different rates from the surrounding space. Sarah noticed that the local wildlife had fallen unusually quiet. The birds that normally filled the cemetery's ancient trees with morning song were silent, as if waiting. Even the squirrels that usually scampered between graves stood motionless, their attention fixed on something beyond human perception. Dr. Foster's team detected what she called anticipatory patterns in the behavior of animals throughout the area. "They're responding to something we can't yet perceive," she explained, showing Sarah the data. "Their neural activity suggests they're aware of an impending event of significant magnitude." The mist began moving in ways that defied natural air currents, forming spiral patterns that matched the geometries Max had traced during his vigil months before. Marina Santos set up her easel, her hands moving almost automatically as she captured the ethereal shapes on canvas. Father O'Connor arrived with ancient texts that described similar phenomena at sacred sites throughout history. "These accounts speak of moments when the natural order aligns in perfect harmony," he explained, "creating conditions where extraordinary events become possible." The scientific team expanded their monitoring perimeter as the quantum field effects began spreading beyond the gravesite. Dr. Rodriguez's sensors detected what she called quantum entanglement cascades, waves of coherent energy that seemed to be building towards some kind of crescendo. Local students who had been studying the phenomena as part of their science curriculum arrived with their own monitoring equipment. Their presence added an extra layer of documentation to the unfolding events, their fresh perspectives catching details that might otherwise have been missed. Sarah found herself drawn to specific points around her father's grave, locations that corresponded with entries in James's theoretical work about nodes of intersection, where different levels of reality could potentially connect. The air at these points felt thicker, more charged with possibility. The gathering crowd maintained a respectful silence, sensing the gravity of what was building. Among them were skeptics who had come to disprove the phenomena, and believers who had traveled hundreds of miles to witness it. All stood together, united in their awareness that something unprecedented was about to occur. Dr. Chen's instruments began recording what he termed reality fluctuations, moments when the normal laws of physics seemed to bend slightly, creating measurable distortions in space and time. These effects increased in frequency and intensity as the morning progressed. The research team documented changes in the local magnetic field that corresponded with patterns found in James Mitchell's theoretical work. The correlations were too precise to be coincidental, suggesting that everything unfolding had been anticipated in his research. Sarah's sister Rebecca, who had remained skeptical throughout the previous events, arrived with her own scientific team from Seattle. Their independent measurements confirmed everything the local researchers had been recording, adding another layer of validation to the extraordinary data. The air temperature around the grave began dropping rapidly, creating a visible boundary where warm morning air met an inexplicably cold zone. Dr. Rodriguez's sensors showed that this temperature differential matched exactly with areas of intense quantum activity. Local law enforcement, led by officers who had worked with James Mitchell, established a careful perimeter around the site. They understood the importance of maintaining order while allowing the phenomena to unfold naturally, just as James would have wanted. The quantum field readings suddenly shifted, showing what Dr. Chen called coherent organization, as if countless random patterns were aligning themselves into something more purposeful. The scientific team rushed to document every aspect of this unprecedented change. Sarah felt a deep connection to her father's work as she watched the events unfold. James had theorized about moments like this, when the boundary between different levels of reality might become permeable under specific conditions. Everything they were witnessing matched his predictions with uncanny accuracy. The gathered crowd grew larger as word spread through the town, but maintained its respectful silence. People seemed to understand instinctively that they were about to witness something that would challenge their understanding of reality itself. The research team's equipment began recording synchronized patterns across all their different monitoring systems. Dr. Rodriguez described it as universal coherence, a state where multiple independent measurements showed harmonious alignment. The morning light seemed to bend and flex around the gravesite, creating visual effects that defied photography, but were witnessed by hundreds of people. The air itself appeared to be preparing for something momentous, something that would transform their understanding forever. As the setup phase reached its peak, there was a palpable sense of anticipation throughout Pine Grove Cemetery. Years of scientific research, months of careful observation, and centuries of sacred tradition were converging toward a moment of revelation that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the nature of reality and the power of devotion. The stage was set for something extraordinary, a moment when science and mystery, logic and love would merge to reveal truths about existence that would change their understanding forever. And through it all, Sarah felt her father's presence, as if James Mitchell had known all along that this moment would come. The amazing payoff materialized in a way that left even the most skeptical observers speechless. As the morning mist swirled around Pine Grove Cemetery, Max emerged from the tree line. But he wasn't alone. Beside him padded a small girl, no more than 7 years old, wearing a red coat that seemed to glow in the ethereal light. The crowd gasped collectively as they recognized her, Emily Chen's granddaughter, Katie, who had gone missing in the woods 3 days ago. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum sensors exploded with readings that defied conventional physics. The energy patterns around James Mitchell's grave pulsed in perfect synchronization with Max's approach, creating visible waves of light that rippled through the morning air. The German shepherd moved with deliberate purpose, guiding the child. With gentle nudges when her steps faltered, Sarah's hands trembled as she documented the scene. The search for Katie had consumed the town for days, with rescue teams combing the dense forest surrounding Millbrook. Now, here she was, being led to safety by the very dog everyone had dismissed as lost in grief. Max's absence during the bridge period suddenly took on new meaning. He had been fulfilling a higher purpose, one that perfectly aligned with James Mitchell's lifetime of service. Detective Torres pushed through the crowd, his face showing a mixture of awe and professional interest. "Your father worked a series of cases involving lost children," he revealed to Sarah. "He had a theory about animals being able to perceive connections between different points in space-time, especially in areas with strong quantum field activity." The scientific team scrambled to document every aspect of the extraordinary scene. Dr. Chen's instruments recorded what he called quantum tunneling effects on a scale never before observed. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend around Max and Katie as they approached, creating distortions that were captured by dozens of cameras. Katie showed no fear of the large dog at her side. Instead, she kept one small hand buried in his thick fur, her trust complete. Later she would tell her story, how she had become lost in a part of the forest where compasses spun uselessly and cell phones couldn't find signals. How Max had appeared just as hope was fading, bringing water and leading her along paths that seemed to defy normal space and distance. Dr. Foster's analysis of Max's behavior revealed something extraordinary. The dog wasn't just acting on instinct. His movements showed evidence of what she termed quantum navigation, an ability to perceive and traverse spatial anomalies that should have been impossible. The patterns of his rescue route, when mapped, matched exactly with the theoretical models James Mitchell had developed years before. The local media struggled to capture the full significance of what they were witnessing. Here was Max, the dog everyone had pitied for his seemingly endless grief, revealing a deeper purpose behind his disappearance. His devotion to James Mitchell hadn't ended at the grave. It had evolved into something more profound, a continuation of his master's lifelong mission to protect and serve. Sarah found entries in her father's journal that seemed to predict this moment. James had written about quantum bridges, points where space, time, and consciousness could intersect under specific conditions. He had theorized that certain animals, particularly those with strong emotional bonds to humans, might be able to perceive and utilize these intersections. The gathered crowd watched in amazed silence as Max led Katie to her grandmother. Emily Chen fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she embraced her granddaughter. The moment transcended scientific explanation, touching something deeper about the nature of loyalty, love, and service. Dr. Rodriguez's team documented what she called consciousness-driven quantum effects, measurable changes in the local quantum field that seemed to respond directly to Max's intentions. The dog had somehow learned to navigate and manipulate these fields, using them to accomplish what conventional search and rescue methods could not. Father O'Connor moved through the crowd, offering comfort and perspective. "Throughout history," he said, "there have been accounts of animals serving as bridges between different levels of reality. What we're witnessing isn't just a rescue, It's a demonstration of truths that science is only beginning to understand. The research team's data showed that Max had somehow utilized the quantum field anomalies around James Mitchell's grave to accomplish his rescue mission. The dog had accessed what Dr. Chen called spatial shortcuts, paths through space-time that defied conventional physics but aligned perfectly with James's theoretical work. Katie's story, when she was finally able to tell it, added another layer of wonder to the events. She described how Max had led her through what seemed like folded space, covering impossible distances in short periods. The dog had known exactly when to rest, when to seek water, and how to navigate through areas where normal spatial relationships seemed to break down. Local law enforcement officials were stunned to learn that Max had succeeded where their most sophisticated search equipment had failed. The dog had somehow perceived Katie's location across barriers that should have been impenetrable, using abilities that challenged their understanding of what was possible. The scientific implications of the rescue were staggering. Dr. Foster's analysis showed that Max had demonstrated abilities that went far beyond known animal capabilities. The dog had somehow learned to perceive and interact with quantum-level phenomena in ways that should have been impossible for any living creature. Sarah's documentation of the event captured details that the scientific instruments missed. The perfect timing of Max's arrival, the way he had positioned himself to allow multiple cameras to record the rescue, the deliberate nature of every movement. It was as if he had understood the importance of providing irrefutable evidence of what had occurred. The local community, which had supported Sarah through months of seemingly futile observation, now saw their faith vindicated in the most extraordinary way. Max hadn't been lost in grief. He had been preparing for a mission that would save a child's life and demonstrate truths about reality that would change their understanding forever. Marina Santos, who had been painting the scene, captured something in her work that the photographs missed, a sense of purpose and destiny fulfilled. Her canvas showed Max and Katie emerging from what appeared to be folded space, surrounded by patterns of light that matched exactly with Dr. Rodriguez's quantum field measurements. The amazing payoff transcended simple rescue. It validated James Mitchell's theoretical work, demonstrated capabilities that science had considered impossible, and showed how love and loyalty could evolve into something that transcended physical limitations. Max had transformed from a grieving dog into something more, a bridge between different levels of reality, a guardian who could perceive and traverse the quantum foundations of space itself. The evidence was undeniable, captured by multiple cameras and scientific instruments. Max had done what should have been impossible, using abilities that James Mitchell had theorized but never lived to prove. The dog had turned grief into purpose, loss into service, and in doing so had changed their understanding of what was possible forever. The implications of this event would ripple through scientific communities worldwide, challenging conventional understanding of physics, consciousness, and the capabilities of living beings. But for those who witnessed it firsthand, the most profound impact was emotional, a demonstration of how love and loyalty could evolve into something that transcended the boundaries of normal reality. As the morning light painted the cemetery in gold, Sarah realized that her father's work had found its ultimate validation. Through Max's extraordinary rescue, James Mitchell's theories about the nature of reality and consciousness had been proven in the most meaningful way possible. By saving a life and bringing hope to a community, the amazing payoff had transformed Pine Grove Cemetery from a place of endings into a site of new beginnings, where the boundaries between science and mystery had dissolved, and where a dog's devotion had revealed truths about reality that would change their understanding forever. The aftermath of Max's extraordinary rescue resonated far beyond the quiet bounds of Pine Grove Cemetery. Within hours, the story had captured international attention, sparking discussions in scientific communities, spiritual circles, and among people who recognized that something profound had occurred in their understanding of reality itself. Dr. Rodriguez's research team worked tirelessly to analyze the massive amount of data collected during the rescue. Their preliminary findings, published in prestigious scientific journals, suggested that Max had demonstrated an unprecedented ability to perceive and navigate quantum-level phenomena. The implications challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness and its relationship to physical reality. Sarah found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, fielding requests from research institutions worldwide. Her father's theoretical work, once dismissed as fringe science, was now being studied at major universities. James Mitchell's predictions about animal consciousness and quantum field interactions had been validated in the most dramatic way possible. Katie Chen's story became a beacon of hope for families of missing persons everywhere. The young girl's detailed account of how Max had guided her through what seemed like folded space provided crucial insights into phenomena that scientists had only theorized about. Her drawings of the experience matched advanced physics concepts that she couldn't possibly have known. Detective Torres collaborated with Sarah to compile a comprehensive report linking James Mitchell's old cases with the recent events. They discovered patterns that suggested similar quantum field anomalies had been present in other instances where animals had demonstrated inexplicable abilities to locate missing persons. The local community transformed in the wake of the events. Pine Grove Cemetery became a site of pilgrimage for scientists, spiritual seekers, and people hoping to understand the deeper mysteries of existence. Mayor Helen Graham established the Mitchell-Max Research Center, dedicated to studying the intersection of animal consciousness and quantum physics. Dr. Foster's ongoing analysis of Max's abilities revealed something extraordinary. The dog hadn't just used quantum field anomalies, he had somehow learned to generate and manipulate them. This discovery led to new theories about animal consciousness and its potential to interact with the fundamental fabric of reality. The scientific implications rippled through multiple fields of study. Quantum physicists found evidence supporting theories about consciousness-driven quantum effects. Neurologists discovered new patterns in animal brain activity that suggested capabilities far beyond current understanding. Theoretical physicists began revisiting abandoned concepts about the nature of space-time itself. Marina Santos's paintings of the rescue became highly sought-after works of art. Critics noted how she had captured something that photographs missed, a sense of space bending around Max and Katie, patterns of light that matched quantum field measurements, and a tangible feeling of purpose fulfilled. The local schools developed new curriculum units based on the events. Students studied the intersection of physics and consciousness, learning how love and loyalty could evolve into something that transcended normal physical limitations. The story became a teaching tool for both scientific principles and human Values. Sarah discovered more of her father's hidden research, including detailed predictions about how animal consciousness might evolve to perceive and interact with quantum-level phenomena. James had theorized that strong emotional bonds could create lasting changes in the quantum field, opening possibilities that conventional science had overlooked. The research team's findings led to new understanding of ancient practices and beliefs. Father O'Connor worked with scientists to explore correlations between quantum field measurements and historical accounts of extraordinary animal behavior at sacred sites worldwide. Katie's rescue inspired a revolution in search and rescue techniques. Teams began incorporating quantum field measurements into their operations, paying new attention to animal behavior patterns that might indicate spatial anomalies. Max's achievement had opened new possibilities for finding those lost in seemingly impossible circumstances. The media coverage evolved from sensational headlines to serious scientific discussion. Documentarians worked with Sarah to create detailed records of the events, ensuring that future generations would understand both the scientific significance and the human elements of what had occurred. Dr. Chen's team developed new instruments specifically designed to detect and measure the type of quantum field manipulations Max had demonstrated. These devices revealed layers of reality that had always existed, but had remained invisible to conventional observation methods. The scientific community's understanding of consciousness underwent a profound shift. Max's abilities suggested that awareness could extend beyond physical limitations, operating at quantum levels in ways that challenged materialistic assumptions about the nature of mind and reality. Local artist collectives created installations inspired by the events, combining scientific data with artistic interpretation. These works helped people visualize and understand concepts that existed at the edge of current scientific understanding. The Mitchell-Max Research Center attracted leading scientists from around the world. Their collaborative efforts led to new theories about how consciousness could interact with quantum fields, potentially opening doorways to understanding phenomena that had previously seemed impossible. Sarah worked with university teams to establish research protocols for studying similar phenomena. Her father's theoretical framework, combined with the documented evidence of Max's abilities, provided a foundation for exploring the deeper mysteries of consciousness and reality. The impact on the local community continued to deepen. People reported increased sensitivity to unusual phenomena, particularly involving animals. The cemetery became a place where the boundaries between different levels of reality seemed more permeable, where the impossible became possible. Max's achievement inspired new approaches to working with animals. Trainers and behaviorists began exploring ways to develop and enhance natural abilities that might exist beyond current understanding. The dog had demonstrated that animal consciousness held depths that humans were only beginning to comprehend. The research findings challenged traditional boundaries between science and spirituality. Father O'Connor worked with scientists to explore how ancient wisdom about animal consciousness might inform modern understanding of quantum phenomena. Katie's ongoing connection with Max provided valuable insights into the nature of quantum-level awareness. The child's natural ability to accept and describe seemingly impossible experiences helped bridge the gap between scientific observation and direct experience. The aftermath transformed Pine Grove Cemetery from a place of ending into a site of new beginnings, where the boundaries between science and mystery dissolved, and where a dog's devotion had revealed truths about reality that would change human understanding forever. Sarah established a foundation in her father's name, dedicated to supporting research into consciousness, quantum physics, and the extraordinary capabilities of animals. James Mitchell's work, once dismissed as impossible, had become a gateway to new understanding of reality itself. The events at Pine Grove Cemetery had done more than validate scientific theories. They had demonstrated how love, loyalty, and devotion could evolve into something that transcended physical limitations, opening doorways to understanding that would continue to unfold for generations to come. The larger message and universal truth that emerged from the events at Pine Grove Cemetery transcended both scientific discovery and personal tragedy. What began as a story of grief and loyalty had evolved into a testament to the boundless possibilities that exist when we dare to challenge our understanding of reality itself. Sarah Mitchell's final journal entry captured the essence of what they had witnessed. "My father always said that the greatest mysteries aren't meant to be solved, but experienced. Through Max's extraordinary journey, we've learned that love isn't just an emotion. It's a force capable of bending the very fabric of reality. When we open our hearts to possibilities beyond our current understanding, we discover that the boundaries we accept are often just doorways waiting to be opened." The Mitchell-Max Research Center became a beacon of hope for people worldwide. Scientists and spiritualists alike came to study the unique conditions that had allowed consciousness to transcend normal physical limitations. Their findings suggested that what had occurred in Pine Grove Cemetery wasn't an isolated incident, but rather a glimpse into capabilities that existed within all living beings. Dr. Rodriguez's team published groundbreaking papers demonstrating how emotional bonds could create lasting changes in the quantum field. Their research suggested that consciousness itself might be the bridge between different levels of reality, capable of transcending limitations that had once seemed absolute. Katie Chen's experience became a source of inspiration for children and adults alike. Her simple acceptance of what others considered impossible reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from maintaining an open heart and mind. Schools incorporated her story into lessons about courage, trust, and the importance of staying connected to wonder. The local community transformed into a living laboratory where science and spirituality found common ground. Father O'Connor worked alongside quantum physicists, exploring how ancient wisdom about consciousness might inform modern understanding of reality. Their collaboration led to new insights about the nature of existence itself. Max's achievement inspired a revolution in how humans viewed their relationship with animals. Research programs worldwide began exploring the untapped potential of animal consciousness, discovering capabilities that challenged conventional assumptions about awareness and intelligence. The story spread beyond scientific circles, touching hearts and minds across cultures and beliefs. People recognized in Max's journey a universal truth about the power of devotion to transcend physical limitations. His legacy became a reminder that love, in its purest form, could reshape reality itself. Sarah established the James Mitchell Foundation for Consciousness Studies, dedicated to supporting research into the extraordinary possibilities that exist at the intersection of quantum physics and consciousness. The Foundation's work continued to reveal new layers of understanding about the nature of reality and our place within it. Marina Santos's final painting of the events, titled Doorways of the Heart, captured something beyond the physical events. A sense of reality itself, opening to accommodate the power of unconditional love. The work became a symbol of how art could help bridge the gap between scientific observation and spiritual truth. The research findings challenged humanity to reconsider its place in the universe. If a dog's devotion could bend the laws of physics, what other possibilities existed within the realm of consciousness? Scientists and philosophers alike began exploring new models of reality that could accommodate these extraordinary discoveries. Local schools developed programs teaching children about the importance of maintaining wonder and openness to possibility. The lessons drawn from Max's story weren't just about quantum physics. They were about courage, trust, and the transformative power of love. Dr. Foster's continuing research revealed patterns suggesting that consciousness itself might be the fundamental force shaping reality. Her work showed how emotional bonds could create lasting changes in the quantum field, opening doorways to understanding that transcended conventional scientific models. The events at Pine Grove Cemetery had demonstrated that some truths exist beyond the reach of instruments and equations. The power of devotion to transcend physical limitations, the ability of love to reshape reality itself. These weren't just scientific discoveries, but revelations about the nature of existence. The story's impact continued to ripple outward, touching lives in unexpected ways. People worldwide found inspiration in the tale of a dog whose loyalty had transcended death itself, whose devotion had opened doorways to understanding that changed how humanity viewed reality. Sarah's final public statement captured the broader significance of what they had witnessed. What happened here wasn't just about solving a mystery or proving a scientific theory. It was about remembering that the greatest truths often lie beyond our current understanding, waiting for us to have the courage to reach for them. The Mitchell-Max Research Center became a place where people came not just to study quantum physics, but to explore the deeper mysteries of consciousness and connection. Visitors often reported experiencing a sense of expanded possibility, as if the very air held memories of moments when reality had bent to accommodate the power of love. Max's legacy lived on through the countless lives touched by his story. His journey had demonstrated that loyalty, love, and devotion weren't just emotions. They were forces capable of reshaping the very fabric of existence. The implications of this understanding continued to unfold, offering new possibilities for human growth and understanding. Dr. Rodriguez's final research paper concluded with a profound observation. Perhaps the most significant discovery isn't about quantum fields or consciousness. It's about the human heart's capacity to recognize truth beyond current understanding. Max showed us that some bonds transcend not just death, but the very laws we thought governed reality. The local community maintained a special connection to these events, understanding that they had witnessed something that changed not just scientific understanding, but the human capacity for wonder. Pine Grove Cemetery remained a place where the impossible seemed within reach, where the boundaries between different levels of reality grew thin. As the world continued to process the implications of what had occurred, one truth remained clear. The power of devotion to transcend physical limitations wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It was a reminder of humanity's potential to grow beyond current understanding into new realms of possibility. Katie Chen grew up to become a bridge between scientific and spiritual understanding, her natural acceptance of the extraordinary helping others navigate the frontiers of human knowledge. Her experience remained a testament to the wisdom of maintaining an open heart in the face of mystery. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.